So essentially, I keep noticing this pattern that I I hate to say it, but I think it might apply to every aspect of existence. And that is the idea that you have to do harm in order to do good. So what do I mean by that? I have 5 examples. The first one would be food. You have tens of thousands of years of people trial and error with random foods in the wilderness. Like, we know the things that we typically eat, but we don't have enough of that right now. We're kind of hungry, or I'm just bored or curious, so I'm going to try eating this other thing that we don't typically eat. Sometimes it goes good, and then, okay, cool, now we can eat that thing too. We have a new food to add to our, uh, our understanding of what food is, or it does not go well, and you die. And the rest of the village now knows we don't eat that food. Or, well, it's not food. We don't eat that plant or whatever it is. Right? Trial and error. Untold countless people that have died from just eating the wrong thing. And how insanely grateful I am for them that I don't have to be a part of that process. I can just go on Google or AI, or since that's the current trending thing, and be like, is blah 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 edible? This wild plant that I just foraged? Yes, cool. How do I cook it? Okay, cool. Right? Even we got apps on our phones that you're not supposed to rely on for foraging because you need to be an expert or whatever. But still, so second example, the medical system. There are countless examples of things that we only know about how the body works because that aspect of the body went very wrong for someone at some point. Whether it be a freak accident like that guy that got a railroad spike through his head and yet somehow was still alive, and we gained a lot of understanding about, like, what is the brain, what are the different parts of the brain, the way that his personality changed, and like what is and isn't necessary to sustain a life, and like what even is, how do we define the boundaries of what is a life, and who is a person, when we discover the different aspects of our personality comes from different parts of the brain that aren't necessarily needed in order to continue existing as a continuous flow of life, for lack of a better word, right? There's like illnesses that people have gotten where we used to think either you are sick or you're not, right? And now we understand, like, oh, we can run blood tests and discover you are starting to develop this illness and you will have it later if you continue on the same path, or you have a genetic predisposition, or maybe you have it and you don't have symptoms yet, but it's causing other harm that will then later develop in symptoms or later develop in some other sort of medical issue, right? There's all kinds of horrible things, horrible, incomprehensible amounts of misery and suffering that humans have gone through. And even like the messed up stuff that the Nazis did, experimenting on nerves, the stuff that we know about nerves and what parts of the body are connected to what nerves through their absolutely disgusting experimentation. Really, really messed up, but now it would have been nice if that was consensual, if they didn't just force it upon people. But now we know this stuff, and lots of lives have been saved from that information, interestingly. I'm not saying that it was justified. We It would have been nice to get that information in a different way, but since we have it and we've learned from it, we've learned from the experiments that they've done on people, and it's just further proving my point, is like, regardless of if they did it the way they did or if we did those same experiments in a consensual way where someone like volunteered to be experimented on for the sake of scientific knowledge, either way, like, horrible things would have happened to people in order to gain this knowledge that we can now use to relieve ailments that long ago we would not have been able to believe, let alone even identify what the cause was. So let's see, food, medical. Next example, slavery. This is a fun one for me because it involves monetary dynamics. So there's like the right way of doing something, and then there are shortcuts. So there's like the amount of time and effort and resources. Let's just say resources, because it can be time, it can be uh, things that you need to purchase, whether it be supplies or like the seed or the land or the animal feed if you're using horses, or the gasoline if you're using tractors, or whatever the resources required to produce a product. And then there's the margin that you need in order to earn a profit, and then that is the cost of producing that thing, right? And then you can have shortcuts like free labor, and now you can sell it at a cheaper cost. And now when everyone is used to this cheaper cost, and then you go off and try to start your own farm without slavery because, right, you want to be a moral person, and I applaud that. But if everyone is used to things costing this, when the actual cost, like if you pay your employees, now you need to charge more, and no one's going to buy it because it costs more. Or the only people that will buy it are the ones that are rich enough and have enough of a conscience to care, right? And so, if my understanding is correct, if I remember right, I was told that when slavery was made illegal, which absolutely should have happened, and I think that's a great thing, but then also lots of farms had to go out of business because suddenly now they need to hire employees in order to do that work, and they didn't have enough margin in order to survive that change, which is good. Those farms should not survive because they were operating on such a slim margin by cheating, by using shortcuts. The same dynamic happens in my fourth example. I'm going to kind of blend the two before I get to the fourth one. In modern day farming, right, we don't have slave labor anymore, fantastic, but we still use like monocropping, which is habitat destruction. We use pesticides, which is destroying the environment. It's destroying our health as well in very measurable ways. These are still shortcuts, which allows us to produce way more product than we otherwise would have been able to, because we're doing it in this unethical way. Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna double down on that. Monocropping, tractor usage, pollution on diesel tractors or gasoline tractors, and pesticide usage, and all these things are very unethical, immoral, disgusting ways of being. I'm not religiously minded, but if you're religiously minded, I would absolutely say it is a sin. Like, you could go to hell for that shit. Granted, people need food. So it's a hard one. It's a really, really hard one, but it's not food anymore because you're literally poisoning it with pesticides, and you're poisoning the environment with your pollution and your like nitrogen runoff and the the CAFOs, manure seeping into the well water, which then poisons the whole neighborhood of local people who just want to enjoy their rural life, and then like the product you're actually producing and distributing into the cities is then also poisoning the people in the cities because you're stripping the soils of nutrients. So that's kind of that in between blend between slavery and now I'm talking about climate change. Just for me to passively exist is harmful to the planet. I require food, which involves all of this habitat destruction and pollution. I require heating, which is, I don't even know what my parents' heater, I'm assuming propane. I need electricity in order to like run the stove and the oven and cook food, let alone hobbies like YouTube or video games or learning from the internet requires electricity, which is, I don't know, coal power plants, maybe nuclear, maybe, I don't know. I don't even know. That's something I would love to look into if I ever get the time to learn. Like, where is my electricity coming from? Like, why is that not something that everyone is aware of? It's something that everyone relies on, everyone needs in order to exist because of the systems we built. I, just passively existing, have to be extremely harmful to the world. I do incomprehensible amounts of harm to the environment by the food that I eat, the electricity that I use, the heating, my gasoline to run my car. I choose not to use a mower or any of those sorts of things for excess gasoline usage, but even still, I try to minimize my harm. I try to minimize the amount of consumerism that I engage in, but even still, I must be harmful just to exist so that I can attempt to do good. So I also, very, very important, I also believe it is absolutely every single human's fundamental responsibility to do more good than harm, or at least attempt to. Like, we're all human, we're going to make mistakes, we are going to do awful things, and that is, okay, so to speak, in a way, because like we're human and shit's gonna happen, but you must at least try to do more good than harm. So I'm relying on these destructive systems so that I can figure out how to not rely on those systems anymore, how to replace them, for example, with farming. I could try to save up money so I can go get a chunk of land so I could start a farm in which I'm not using tractors, in which I'm not doing monocropping, in which I'm not fighting against nature, where I'm not using pesticides, I'm working with nature. You do like companion cropping, or you plant flowers that'll attract beneficial insects, which will kill off the insects that were eating your. Like, there's the thing that you're planting, and then there's the thing that eats the thing you're planting. And so instead of just killing it with chemicals, which is also polluting the food and killing us, I like that. I didn't even intend that metaphor of like, killing us. Instead, you can plant some other thing which will attract a bug that will eat the bug that is eating your plant. And then now your plant's saved. Or, like, let's say it likes this, but it also really likes this other plant. So you plant that, and now it'll go eat that instead and leave this alone. All kinds of different ways of working with nature instead of fighting against it. But yet, wonderful thoughts, yet I have to continue to do harm in order to even think about attempting to create some other system that I can then rely on that instead, a system that doesn't do harm, because I'm still relying on the systems that do harm. So that was my first four examples, right? The food, medical, slavery, and then that one kind of blended over into like economics and climate change. And then the last example is like philosophically. Like, you gotta, in every aspect of life, whether it be relationships, like you're not gonna be perfect right off the bat. You're gonna accidentally like say things that you shouldn't and or don't mean, or like you misspeak, or you were like tired and not thinking straight, or whatever. Like, you're gonna make a mistake. You're going to. The important part is that you learn from it so that you can not do that mistake anymore. You are going to do harm. Like, this idea that Bob Marley says, everyone is going to hurt you. Everyone. Unquestionably. Because, like, people will die. If you let someone into your life and you get attached to them, emotionally attached to them, they're going to die and you're going to be hurt by that. And you need to accept that everyone is going to hurt you. But you have to find the ones that are worth hurting for, is what he says. That's the solution, according to him. The idea that you have to, find the ones that are worth the pain. Which is kind of the same thing that I was saying. that you have to attempt to do more good than harm. Easier said than done. This is one of my biggest struggles in life. I often can't handle the stress associated with the amount of harm, like honestly incomprehensible amount of harm that we do, and then I just kind of numb out and don't think about it, and then the harm will continue. You have to be able to gather yourself enough to face the harm directly, consciously, non-disassociatively, if you're going to have any chance at understanding it, let alone fighting it. You can't fix a problem that you can't see. So you have to face it. You have to face the discomfort and hold yourself together and rise above it. Because if you don't, it will continue. If you don't, like, get your shit together, like, all of the awful things will continue. It's just a fact. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. The only way that there's any chance of the harm stopping or reversing, even regenerative farming, is if you can face the pain. And that requires a lot of self-love and self-maintenance, rest, taking care of yourself, so that you have the capacity to continue to show up and fight the battles. Whatever that battle may be, whatever harm you see in the world, that the moment you see it, you are now responsible for fighting it, because other people will see other harm and they will be responsible for fighting that harm. And together, I guess we just keep on trying. We're going to keep on making mistakes, but we'll also keep on correcting mistakes. I really wish I had some like final line or word of wisdom or whatever to wrap this up all neatly, but I don't. And I think that's also part of the lesson, is like this, there doesn't really seem to be an end to it. There is no limit to the infinite potential of human stupidity. We will continue to make mistakes, and we will continue to have to fix them. And that's the game. That's the process. That's what's going on here, as far as I can tell. It's like when you're playing a video game and the game is way too difficult and you're just gonna rage quit because it sucks. You throw down your controller, smash it, or whatever. Well, the boss fight or that dungeon or whatever, you're not gonna beat it then. Definitely not. So go take a break, take some deep breaths, do some yoga, and then come back and fight it again. Because that's the only way that there's any chance of getting through it. Right? And then when you beat it, there's always going to be a bigger fish. There's always going to be another battle, another game, another challenge to overcome. Always, as far as I can tell. So thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful to you in your process. Let me know what you think down below, and question everything.